80 Racers, we're here for the Tug of War 3 matchup between Usain Colt and DEGEN. This is going to be a really exciting one. Usain has been kind of dormant for a couple seasons, and they've recently got back together, and this team is incredibly strong. Breaking down the quick matchup with classifications, Usain Colt is coming to the table with 1A, 6 Bs, 7 Cs, and 1 D. DEGEN, which I'll give them a little bit of a waiver because Brad has been managing a whole entire tournament event, but DEGEN showed up with 0 A's, 3 B's, 7 C's, 4 D's, and 1 X. So when we take a look at just the classification breakdown, Usain Colt has a strong advantage. Now, in this, if you take the total roster time and you add it up, the delta between the two gives Usain Colt an advantage of 1.822 seconds. However, what's unique about this Tug of War event from the other ones is that we have the first time we've had to have a late scratch, meaning that one of the horses that Usain registered was unable to make the registration deadline, so they had to forfeit that one specific horse. The penalty for this type of event is 1/2 of a second from first place for every single furlong. And unfortunately for Usain, the one that they forfeited on was a 14 furlong, so they're looking at a 7-second penalty.
Yeah, now that 7-second penalty, when you break it down over the course of an entire event like this, we've got something like 1,800 seconds, right, on average that are being used up. So the 7 seconds that they lose is a full 3% of that time. So it's, in some ways can seem pretty significant. In other ways, it could be made up quite easily. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to race 3.
Point three. Now, when we go into the first race, the very first race today is going to be on a 6 furlong synthetic. Now, Usain Colt, their team, they're coming into the table on this one with 2 C's and a B compared to the 2 C's and a D of the DEGEN. When we take the total time, it is 221 seconds, 433 thousandths versus 221 seconds, 667 thousandths. So Usain has the advantage here with the average win rate of 13.28% to Usain to the 10.38% of DEGEN. So Usain is getting both advantages on this very first run. So I'm thinking that they are strong favors here. The other one to look out is at lane 5, Dormold, even though it's a C, has a 15.05% win rate. So that's a really strong C that Usain is bringing to the table.
Yeah, this is a really interesting matchup with the 2 Bs and a C, and then the CDC that we see here for race 1 on the synthetic 6 furlong. The horse that I'm most interested here in paying attention to is the DEGEN Turf Club's Shake and Bake. Shake and Bake is a C, but actually has the fastest average time on the synthetic 6 track. So it'll be really interesting to see whether or not that horse shows up. It's also got just over an 11% win rate. So that can bode well for DEGEN's chances here. And it's really going to come down to whether or not, like we say in this event, a lot of times it comes down to whether you cluster them toward the front or the back of the pack when you've got 6 horses running.
Now we have about 90 seconds before the first race is going to kick off. So as we kick things off into that race, Usain Colt is going to be in lanes 3, 4, and 5, and DEGEN is going to be 1, 2, and 6. Now, of the Usain Colt horses, you got the first one in lane 3 has 11.31%, lane 4, 13.48%, and then lane 5, you got 15.05. Compared now to the DEGEN, you got in lane 1, Yahtzee with 9.95, Shake and Bake, like you pointed out, is their strongest with an 11.39%, followed by Far Lap at 9.82. So we got 2 DEGENs that are on the single digit on the win rate. So it would be quite the upset if they could show up and deliver on this one. It would be a huge opportunity for DEGEN to take a lead out the front because of the 5 matchups that we've seen today. Only one of them, I think, is favored towards DEGEN. However, in the matchup 3 is where we have that late scratch.
Yeah, now the other thing to consider here is we're starting off with the shortest distance track in race 1. So the difference between these 2 teams in race 1 shouldn't be all that great. When we get to some of the later races where we are looking at longer ones, that's going to be problematic potentially. But for this one, it should end up being fairly close.
All right, so here we go. Kicking it off, Usain Colt in lanes 3, 4, and 5. Right now, that 1, 2, and 6, those are all DEGEN. So this is a really strong kick for the DEGEN team. 3, 4, and 5 of Usain, they're all trailing behind, but it looks like 3 and 5 are coming in strong. Now, that's a strong win for Yahtzee. Death Star was definitely on its tail. The surprise to me was to see the DEGEN showed up. Those 3 and 5, Dormold and Moho at the very back, or Mojo, those things having a 2.3 loss, that's going to hurt them with the scores. I thought that they were going to show up a lot better than they did. So what do you see on the scores?
Yeah, let's go ahead and load up what we see here. That's a great jump. We got a 2.4 second differential after just a 6 furlong first race. DEGEN taking the early lead here. Now, you did guess that DEGEN had a shot here, but I'm a little surprised, to be honest, that it's 2.4 seconds.
Yeah, that's quite the upset. With 2 Bs in the C compared to 2 Cs in the D, that was a great chance for DEGEN to get ahead. That they were not the favors on that one. Now we're going into the second one. That's quite the deficit. The second is going to be a turf 10 furlong race. So this one, of course, is going to be a lot longer run that you can lose. So we got to make sure that those horses don't fall behind. On Usain Colt, they're bringing in an A, a B, and a C compared to 2 Cs and an X. Now with this, Usain Colt is averaging 366 seconds with 6 thousandths compared to 367 in 130,000. So again, Usain Colt averaged faster with a win rate of 16.54% going to their team, 10.97 to DEGEN. What I want to highlight here, though, because this is just madness, is in lane 4 of Usain Colt is Super Droid. It's the only A in this matchup. Now, to get to an A is difficult. This horse has 115 runs, and it is holding a 24.35% win rate, which is just ludicrous.
That's absolutely insane. And I know you're going to be reloading the second race here for us to take a look at these horses in their lanes. The one you just mentioned, that Super Droid, is in lane 4. And I'm absolutely blown away. Like 24% win rate. It's a full 0.3 faster than any other horse in this race on average. Like, I mean, that is insane. That's going to be the one to take a look at. But something that's also really interesting is lane 6. We've got that X Dominator here who has run 411 times and has a 9.5% win rate on this track. It doesn't mean it won't be able to show up. So I'll be curious to see what Dominator does in comparison to Super Droid and see just how much of a gap we end up having there.
Yeah, and in the first matchup that we had, I thought that Usain was going to take it with some pretty good confidence. Going into this one, if Super Droid in lane 4 throws a skunker in this one, like that horse needs to podium with that kind of background or that kind of stats. I would expect that thing to be the anchor of the team on this. I would expect that thing to get in the top position. That X of Dominator in lane 6, that is quite the wild card. I looking at those ones, I would think that they would be on the far wide spectrum of it. So right now, though, if we take just the average of this, we would look to see a 1.124 second deficit with DEGEN falling behind. And so they're approximately 2.3 seconds ahead at this point. So if the averages hold true, we're going to see that drop down to about 1 minute. Now, as a quick reminder, lanes 2, 3, and 4 are going to be Usain, and 1, 5, and 6 is DEGEN. strong start to that Super Droid as expected. And same thing with number 6, the Dominator being the one that's fallen back. That was as expected. I'm curious how this is going to hold over 10 furlongs. Super Droid pulling ahead and continuing to pull. 3 and 4, those are also Usain Colts. I'm sorry, not 3, 2, 3, and 4. So right now, Usain Colt is taking all 3 podium positions. We'll see how they can hold it in the middle. Strong performance on Usain, but great defense with DEGEN. Spend to win was close on the tail of Darice. I'm impressed that the Dominator did not fall so far back, pulling in a 4th position. Super Droid getting into the podium position. Not too big of a surprise there. How are we looking with the points?
What's really fascinating, check this out. We had a 5% swing to Usain Colt, and they are so close, it's basically a dead heat. We're at 50.08 to 49.92%. What's really interesting, and some of you may have seen these events before and wondered a little bit about how the tug of war on each individual matchup occurs. You'll see that Super Droid has a full 79% pull to Team Usain here versus the 20% that Oh So Sharp had. That would imply, you would think, that Super Droid won this race, but this is not actually how it works. It's a matchup of these 2 particular horses in the first slot against each other. And so the fact that Oh So Sharp was just so far back in that 6th spot has led to Super Droid having the largest pull for Usain Colt, even though it didn't win.
Yep. Now, what's really interesting about this is that the fact that this is now razor thin, Usain getting that victory was very much needed. As we go into the 3rd race, this is the one where we have this scratch situation. So this is the first time in the Tug of War series that we've had this happen. So you're going to notice that only 5 horses are on the track. What's unfortunate is that the 3 horses that Usain submitted were all Bs going up against a B, C, and a D. So this one was going to be extremely favored to Usain. But now, because they have that scratch, whatever horse takes first place, there's going to be a 7-second penalty. So Usain desperately needs to make sure that one of their 2 horses, which are going to be showing up in lanes 3 and 4, they need those horses to show up big time because they need to get that win. If DEGEN can get the win, it's going to hurt Usain even more because they're going to get both penalties, basically not getting the win and getting a 7-second penalty off of the top.
Exactly. The 7 seconds can really hurt, but Usain Colt's got the 2 fastest horses still by average in this race. So if they can pull off a 1st and 2nd comparative to the rest of the pack, I mean, you can do the quick math. You can absorb a 7-second penalty pretty quick if you're a couple seconds out in front of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th place horse. So every second that leader is out in front is the one that's the most important.
All right, so now as this one kicks out, I'm going to walk you through some of the stats here because we got a little bit longer of a race to go through. With the 14 furlong, both teams, so we got only 3 and 4 are going to be with Usain Colt. In lane 4, you got Mike D with a 13.18% win rate. You got Guillotine in lane 3 with a 15.56. So lanes 3 and 4, I would suspect those horses are going to do quite well. Now, looking at DEGEN, you got lanes 1, 2, and 5. Dr. Bill in lane 2 has a 13.24% win rate, so that's a very strong contender. Lane 5, you got Punter at 10.6. Now, lane 1, Drunken Pleasure. This is the lowest ranked horse in this one as a D with only a 5.66% win rate. So seeing number 1 trailing the back does not surprise me too much. It's going to be a battle for those top 2 spots. 3 and 4 desperately need to start speeding up here. Otherwise, this one's going to hurt Usain badly. Impressive for DEGEN. I thought Guillotine had a chance to close that, but at least he closed the gap some, but that is going to hurt DEGEN terribly. All 3 horses in the podium are all DEGEN, even though they were not the favored, and we had the penalty on Usain with a 7-second stroke.
I mean, look at how close the first, second, and third place horses are. I mean, this is the polar opposite of what we just said needed to happen for Usain Colt to make up that difference. You needed to have a gap between you being in the first couple spots and the rest of the pack, but instead we got Mike D right in the back on top of the penalty, and that results in a full 8.6 second padding now to DEGEN Turf Club, a full 17% swing in the Tug of War to the right-hand side.
That's going to hurt. So we've seen a deficit like this, but Fashbinder versus DE, but that only happened at the very end. Gibois versus Prospects has started to happen around the same point. We have 2 more races in front of us. They're long ones, fortunately. So we're looking at a 12 furlong race coming up next. Now, within this race here, we have Usain at 439 and 369 thousandths versus 439, 180 thousandths. So these 2 teams matchups are going to be really close here. DEGEN's been in a good spot. So right now they just need to make sure that all of them make it to the end without doing something stupid. The win rates are favored to DEGEN on this one. This is where the tides turn in favor them with a 12.12% win rate versus Usain's 7.05. So the horses that I would be most interested to pay attention to, lanes 4, 5, and 6 is Usain. Godzilla, lane 5, has only run this track 14 times and has never won a race.
Yeah,
so
that's a wild card here.
Quite the wild card. It's like, is it going to show up and put in the fast run here? We got in DEGEN's lanes 1, 2, and 3. So much easier for us to follow. 1, 2, 3 is DEGEN. 4, 5, 6 is Usain. of the DGen, we got all three horses are double-digit win rates. You got 10.14 out of Queen Nora, 12.50 of the Resistance, and you got 13.74 out of Hung Like Brad. So of the two horses, the best on both teams, I would suggest that Hung Like Brad in lane 3, this is going to be a track where he's going to show up in Usain. The Triumph at lane 4 with 11.33% has 415 runs. Pretty solid. Then you got Hermione, who's their only B in lane 6. So that's going to be the chances that they need, but let's see how they perform. This is looking good for Usain with 5 and 6 coming in strong. We got Queen Nora, who was in the trailing at the last place, showing up, fighting for third. Who do we got trailing? We got Triumph, number 4. This is also Usain Colt, but at least it's being matched with Hung Like Brad. Hung Like Brad is just trailing off. Coming into the final bit, we got Godzilla, Hermione, and the Resistance looking like they're going to be the ones that are going to finish in the podium. Very good. 3.165 Hung Like Brad. That's going to hurt him a little bit there.
That was our wild card there, Godzilla. Godzilla with only the 15th run of its life on the turf 12.
Yep.
Pulling out a win here is huge for Usain Colt. Let's take a look at what the Tug of War looks like now.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity to throw in those horses. If you've only run them 10 or 12 times, you've never had a win, you're due to hit. And they played that card right, and they definitely got the point.
Yeah, never having won, pulls off the win and swings it 7.46% back toward the Usain side. That cuts the deficit basically in half, meaning that there is actually a strong shot as we go into the fifth and final race for Usain to try to pull this off.
Now let's take a look at the last race. So we got about 90 seconds before this one kicks off. This is in 8 furlongs, so a little bit quicker than the other ones we just seen. Taking a look at the two teams' layouts, Usain averaging a 294 and 78 thousandths versus 294 and 278 thousandths. So you beat him by 200 thousandths going to the favor of Usain. The win rate's also stronger with Usain, 13.26 as a club, 11.79 to DGen. Every horse in this lineup has double digits. So taking a look at what we got 3 C's out of Usain, 2 D's, and a B out of DGen. The only B we got is bow and arrow in lane 2. So 3, 4, and 5 are lanes for Usain, and 1, 2, 6 is for DGen.
Yeah, bow and arrow. I mean, if you're DGen, you got to be feeling good right now. Bow and arrow in that lane 2 is my horse here. Like that B rating, one of the fastest times on this track, a 13% win rate on it as well. You're looking to see bow and arrow win this. The question is going to be by how much and whether or not Usain Colt ends up in the 2, 3, and 4 spots.
I'm going to throw this back up on the screen just to take a look at here. So we are looking at a 4.877 deficit. We have seen 8 seconds can swing very easily. So at this point in the game, even though right now it is leading up to a DGen, or leading, right? Yep. So Usain Colt, this is all on them. If they want to flip this, they need to make sure that bow and arrow throws a skunker. Usain with 3, 4, and 5 all in the lead, but here we got number 6. Dominance is showing up to try to disrupt this. Bow and Arrow is throwing that stinker right now at 2.1 behind. We have a 4.8 second deficit that we would need to resolve for Usain to close that gap. This is looking really close. Dropping back here, Bow and Arrow and I'm a Snail both are just really dragging. 3 seconds, 2.5 seconds. We're up top. We still are having a strong Usain Colt.
Wow.
Well, that was a tight finish there.
Oh my.
Can't believe Bow and Arrow did hit it that bad. I am a Snail. Both of them combined, that's almost 6 seconds. That makes me guess. Did Usain sneak it out at the end?
Let's take a look. Sub 1 second split.
Oh, not enough.
DEGEN pulls it off with 51.54%, taking full advantage of the fact that they had that penalty to work with. That, wow, what a finish. Seriously.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. I'm just going back to what we were originally looking at. The delta between these two teams as the overarching was 1.822 seconds. So coming down with this with a penalty, man, both teams did really well. DEGEN, you showed up strong. You pulled off the victory. Usain, it sucks that you had the 7-second penalty, but man, you guys came back crazy strong. That's good showing.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, that 7 seconds again is over the course of 1,800 plus seconds. So it was absorbed. And I mean, I'd have to do the math really fast here, but that 0.769 second difference is got to be real close when you go to absorb that 7 seconds over the course of the entire set of races.
No, agreed. So coming up next, so that was our Tug of War 3. It looks like we got the next battle between Team Plexidar and Harvey. So we're going to be seeing another battle between them. We're looking for even more teams. So any teams out there, maybe the average Joes would like to get into this. We got the BBBT. We got a couple SMR. We got to get lots more teams. Our hope is once we get everybody to battle it out once, we'll then be able to reshuffle up those pairings and start getting some rankings established. So as always, guys, thank you for everything, your support, watching this one, the teams that participated. If you haven't seen it yet, we did just air the Donkey Death Match, the first time ever. So 12 horses have been removed from the ecosystem.
Yeah, go check it out. It's seriously fun to watch.